Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Dr. Lisa Wiedeman, at Carnivore Doctor on Instagram, has been a carnivore for over 11 years and believes firmly that vegetables and fiber are not necessary and maybe even not healthy. She's an optometric physician, carnivore coach who has helped hundreds with their carnivore diets, maybe thousands, and recently started a YouTube channel where she shares recipes and amazing information that's helpful with carnivores. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm very excited to speak with you today.
Thanks. It's really great to be here. I am just so passionate about really giving out as much information as I can regarding my experience as a carnivore for over 11 years. So I'll give your listeners a little bit of a background on myself in case you're not familiar with me. So I've been an optometric physician for 30 years. And day in and day out, I do attempt to really give as much information as I can to help those who are suffering from different eye diseases that I'm pretty positive can be cured or halted with a carnivore diet. So, but my background really for coming to this is for pretty much my whole life, realized I suffered from sugar and carb addiction, and it was a pretty much a long, difficult road of trying to figure out why and how to stop it. And I totally did not understand how addictive sugar really is, and that it's actually an addictive drug. I had no clue. And so time went on, and I developed eating disorders, and it was an extremely debilitating kind of silent thing to suffer through. And I just kept searching and seeking out what the answer could be to this. And, as time went on, it was just trying to eat, low fat and everything that, the media puts out to do. And I was eating salads with boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and then I'd end up binging. And it was just a very, very, not productive path to where I needed to be. So what somebody had recommended to me, this Schwarzbein principle book, and basically that is eliminating sugar and flour. And that made a large difference for me. And that was the first light bulb moment of, oh, so this is what we need to do. We can't be eating pasta and bread. And but at the same time, then that led me to a book called Neanderthal, which is basically Paleolithic eating. And but I realized you can easily binge on dried apricots and fruits and all sorts of different things that were actually still sweet were included. And then there's Atkins, and the Atkins induction was really close to carnivore. And I just, kept feeling like there was just no way out of this black hole. I kept sort of going back into my addiction. So I was just so thankful as I kept searching and surfing the internet to have come across Charles Washington's Zeroing In on Health group, which back before Facebook was Facebook, this was just his own private forum, because they were kind of pushed off of Jimmy Moore's Live in the Low Carb Beta website, I believe, because their thread got fairly large. And so Charles and these other group of people were just, journaling back and forth and communicating. And I came upon them and these women on there who were openly talking about their eating disorders and how this cured them. So right then and there, March of 2009 was when I jumped right in full force, and was happy that as I did it and kept researching, I was thinking, how could this possibly be healthy? We're not eating fruits and vegetables, and can you do this long term? I think it's the same questions that everybody has out there when you come across this sort of freakish way to eat that seems so extreme. But in looking back at it now, I wish I would have really had this common sense sort of thought to myself like I do now is, well, what did ancestral man do? Hundreds of thousands of years ago, they were hunting animals and eating them, and they weren't eating those tart cherries and crab apples that were available. They didn't have, what's available to us now. And they lived perfectly happy lives. And as I researched it more, I realized actually much healthier than we have all these diseases of modern civilization now that none of them suffered from. So, I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops and let everybody know about how amazing this is, except not too many people really want to listen and don't want to watch you fly your little freak flag. And so I just sort of went about my way, and I privately coached, friends and people who were really, truly, genuinely interested, who had their own reason for coming to this, because I always say people have their why. They have their real motivating issue, typically health issue, that no matter what they did, whether they tried, vegetarianism and it actually got worse or whatever it is, and they just are looking for an answer. So, now that this has become more popular with the different outlets of the Joe Rogan with Michaela and Jordan Peterson, and people coming to it that way, and then Sean Baker being on there, I felt there was a void in the carnivore community of more of us who are long-term carnivore eaters to actually be pretty much spokespeople for saying, look, I've done it for, over 10 years, and I have never felt better in my life. I feel like I look younger and feel younger than I ever have. And I say, I feel like I found the fountain of youth. And it's one of those things where I'm just so passionate to really help anybody who's truly come to this for the reasons that they themselves want to solve some sort of life debilitating issue that they have. And it's just really rewarding to be able to help people and really try to convey that, at least in my experience, it's been the healthiest and best thing that's really ever happened in my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really appreciate your stance, Lisa, as both a physician and a carnivore veteran who's seen it all yourself and also helped hundreds and thousands of people in the background with no agenda and no financial incentive to just really try to better people's lives. And through that, you've gained so much perspective and experience on a carnivore diet, which I think is why people flock to you and are getting so much help out of the information you're sharing. And I can totally relate to some of the feelings you've had around, not wanting to fly your freak flag, as you say. Oftentimes when I'm asked about the carnivore diet, it's very easy to default into, oh yeah, it works for me. And they say, isn't that bad for you? And I'll just brush it off with something simple like, I haven't died yet or something, rather than try to educate or at least provide helpful information. So I can totally relate to that. And I think a lot of other people can too, but it is that harder way to really try to share information. And I think that's really how this gets spread. And I'd love to visit some of those early days for you, because I always say, I started a carnivore diet about 3.5 years ago. There's a lot more information then than there was when you started even, but there's so much more information now with MeatRx and Sean Baker and Paul Saladino and yourself and Kelly Hogan providing all these resources, and Amber. When you started carnivore, what did you eat when you first started it, and what were some of the first health changes you noticed?
Yeah, so I think back then what what we were sort of journaling back and forth to each other in trying to figure this all out was looking at the workings of Stan Owsley, the bear, who had been eating this way, for about 40 years at that point. So that became very interesting to us for the sustainability factor and trying to figure out exactly what he was eating and not eating. And then there's the fat of the land. There was little bits and pieces of resources. But really what it came down to, the bottom line was there was at the beginning, maybe 100 of us on that forum and just writing our own personal experiences. And just bit by bit, people saying, wow, my gout went away. Wow, my eczema cleared. Wow. For me, I had jawline, neck acne, adult acne, that was just really annoying to suffer with and deal with, that, within 2 weeks, and people can go on my Instagram, I actually have a before and after picture of a 2-week difference of, literally stopping everything. But, my diet's basically meat, seafood, eggs, and cheese. I do try to eliminate the dairy. I go back and forth with it because I have a love-hate relationship with cheese. But I think for people who are new to carnivore, if you are dairy tolerant and you yourself enjoy cheese, I say, you know what, it's hard enough sort of like jumping into this and adapting to the whole carnivore thought to begin with, that I think that really helped me transition. So I try not to be dogmatic with anybody about saying, well, you know what, a lot of people don't do well with cheese. You shouldn't eat it. I try to say, you know what, just keep going. Your journey is going to gradually evolve. So, back then I was basically, I wasn't specifically trying to eat lean and fat. That's what the one thing, and nowadays it seems a little bit different for me, because a lot of people come from the keto community and they're so concerned about macros and micros and, ketones and, how much fat and how much protein, and just, and for me and for us back then, we weren't counting anything. We weren't tracking anything. We weren't talking about, things like that, other than we'd say, well, if you've got, an ongoing situation, you're fairly new to carnivore and you've got a lot of diarrhea, well, then cut down the fat. If you're constipated and, it's been, a couple weeks and you're having issues there, then cut down the dairy and increase your fat. There was just little things like that. So I think part of it for me that I actually still say, and if anybody listens to my lives on over on Instagram, I do, and I think some people appreciate it. I have a very simplistic approach to it, that I say, if you're spending so much time calculating and plotting and tracking, it loses its simplicity, and it loses the beauty of, what I keep referring back to as ancestral man is, you get hungry and then you eat your fill of really tasty meat, and you're not worried about, how much fat and if you're getting enough organs. And that's a common question I get as far as eating organs. I'm not a fan of liver at this point. I don't know if I can start eating it for it to grow on me, but I like to tell people, in 11 years, I really have not eaten any organ meat at all. I don't take any supplements or minerals or nutrients of any sort. And my blood work's always been perfect. I don't feel like I'm suffering from any sort of issue. Skin, I think something would show if I was really deficient in something from not eating organ meat. And now that's not to say that I do truly believe that it is really nutritional from everything I see and read. And I try to always have an open mind. I don't think I'll ever be cooking up brain or spleen and eating it personally. Honestly, I really don't. But, I am going to just experiment, and for no other reason other than just seeing if this is, doable for me. But, grinding up some chicken liver and mixing it in with ground beef, for starting out with a small percentage, and making my ground beef with a little, liver in it once a week or something like that. But yeah, as far as I don't really feel like what I've eaten all in the past and at the beginning has really changed all that much from the way I eat now.
This episode is brought to you by Optimal Carnivore. Optimal Carnivore was created by carnivores for carnivores. They've recently released a new product, a grass-fed bone marrow. It is the whole bone extract, which includes the bone marrow, the cartilage, and collagen peptides. Our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal, including bones, and especially the marrow. All the nutrients and substance that your body needs to build, repair, and maintain your bones, teeth, and connective tissue can come from the bone marrow. It's a complex that contains the same components as home-cooked bone broth, but making bone broth can be a hassle. You have to source high-quality bones, boil them for days, and this is a simple, convenient alternative that's gently freeze-dried so it preserves all the nutrients completely intact. It's perfect for people who are traveling or don't have time to make bone broth themselves. Visit www.amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code carnivore10 to receive 10% off your purchase. I love the zeroing in on health, keep it simple attitude of really just eat fatty meat, make it beef and water for the most part, not looking down on people for enjoying other meats if they want to, not forcing people to have a dogmatic approach of nose to tail or only grass finished meat. I really think that and it's not just, the advice isn't just simple, and it's not just simple to be simple. It's simple based on thousands of members and people's experiences, which is really powerful.
Yeah. And, part of it too, for me, that I love personally is just that I'm just so passionate to, try to help anybody and everybody who wants to get the information. And, I'm not selling anything, I'm really, that's the one thing really kind of cool about carnivore. There's really nothing to sell. So it just feels very genuine that, I'm not saying something with an ulterior motive. I just really want to give, people my real life experience.
Yeah. And Lisa, what does a typical day or week of eating look like for you? I'm a big fan of your taco bowls that you post on your Instagram and some of the recipes you have over there, but just give folks a taste of what you eat on a daily basis.
Yeah. I really, the whole subject of frequency of eating and intermittent fasting and fasting comes up. And I really feel like I have naturally evolved in a very simple, easy way, just over time, to very often eating one meal a day. And it's partly for convenience too. I mean, how great is that to really just have to think about mealtime once, make this great big meal. You're good and hungry because you haven't eaten in about 20 to 24 hours. And you get to just eat this delicious whatever it is that you're making for yourself, and that's it. You clean up and you're done until tomorrow. So, I don't actually do it for convenience. It's actually like that's the way my hunger typically goes. If I end up, hungry at 10 a.m. the next day, I will certainly eat and then probably eat again around 7 p.m. or, whenever I get hungry again. That might be a 2-meal day kind of day. But, I do love, ground beef is just so simple. I feel like it's so affordable for people. I intermix that with steaks just because I really enjoy ribeye, New York strip. And sometimes I just shop the ads. I will, they might have a huge sale on pork ribs. I'll buy a couple slabs of that and smoke them up on the smoker and just do that for a change. Sometimes I'll make shrimp or scallops as a side to my steak. I do eat eggs. I'm not, sensitive to them at all. I enjoy them. I don't eat them like real frequently and real often, but I certainly do include them, probably, I'm going to say, I guess on average, it's weird. I don't really have an average week just because I don't know why. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants on what's in my fridge and what I eat. But, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, I will cook up eggs, and it'll certainly usually have like a whole bunch of leftover cut up meats from my grilling the prior 2 nights. And I just make this awesome, egg dish. But the ground beef bowls are so good, and they're so simple, and they're so diverse in such a simple, non-complicated way. Because one day I will and usually for me, I don't like to overly spice things, but I'll put a tablespoon of like my homemade taco seasoning in with about a pound of ground beef. If I'm on cheese that particular month, I'll throw in some sharp cheddar, mix that in, and then I throw it all in a bowl, usually throwing the fat in right off of the pan, like everything right into a pasta bowl, and then eat that with some sour cream. And that's my taco bowl. And then, a couple days later, I could have more ground beef, except I might use I've got this great ranch dry spice mix, and I'll put that in, and maybe I have brie in my refrigerator, and I'll just do different combinations. And then to take it further, you can do ground lamb and throw that in a pan, and then I'll mix feta cheese, and I have this Euro spice seasoning mix. And it's just so the speed of it, the simplicity of it, and how delicious it is. It's just like a no-brainer for me that that wouldn't be a staple of, at least on the menu of a lot of people, because it's really like the simplicity of it is just like 5-star.
Yeah. It's just totally divorced from the 6 meals a day. What am I going to have today? Baking up some elaborate meal every time.
Yeah.
So simplistic. And how about, can you talk a little bit about a question I get a lot, and I'm sure it's probably, let me know if I'm wrong, but it's probably less of an issue for you at this point. But cravings. People ask me all the time about cravings on carnivore and keto, which is a little bit of a different story. But do you still get cravings, and what advice do you have for folks starting out who are getting cravings for sweets or different textures or tastes on a carnivore diet?
Yeah, I think initially there's definitely a period of time of where your body will eradicate the actual physical chemical craving of the addiction. And everybody's different. I liken it to alcohol, that there are some people who are so strongly addicted to sugar, who've come from these backgrounds, and I think there's a lot of us out there who it's just a driving force to literally get up out of your chair and go get yourself some, or get in your car because you've cleared yourself out of it because you're not going to eat anymore, and you get in your car and go drive to get it. For those type of people, I think it takes a little bit longer to get over the physical craving. And just like alcohol, where I feel like a lot of people can just socially have a drink and a week later have another, and there's other people that have a bottle every night. So the variance of that, it's hard to just outright just say, time frame, when does it go away and how is it? But, for me, I try to talk to everybody who I coach who has come from this type of sugar carb addiction background. I try to really emphasize that you will get over the physical addiction. That's going to go, and it might be 3 weeks, it might be 3 months, but that will go away. You have to white knuckle it and fight through it. And I give people challenges, and I tell them I'm holding you accountable, and they and just getting through that is the first thing. But I say there's also an issue of what I'll call the mental addiction of it. And that's that reason why we go to it. Just like a drug addict goes to the drug, or an alcoholic to the alcohol, or a shopaholic to the store. There is a alternative drive other than a brain function, physical, chemical drive for that addictive substance. And that's what we have to really fix. And the saying is, you have to change your relationship with food. It has to become not an entity of comfort for anxiety or stress or anger or boredom, or whatever it is that's typical that we turn to the comfort of those foods. That has to change. And I one of my favorite things is just to tell people, you have to read, and you have to read a lot. You have to read every day, because what I want you to read is all the information of all sorts from all different sources, whether it's Joan Ifland, who's, a processed food addiction specialist, or Robert Thymus, the carb addiction doc, who's that bariatric surgeon who goes into a lot about the addictive nature of it, to literally like Lustig, like some scientific, YouTube things where you actually understand and learn and sit through a little science lecture about how toxic sugar really is to the body. And you will then gradually, your brain will start to alter to when you look at, if somebody is near you, that's one of the difficult things with this, is we're surrounded by it. We're in a society where this is not going to go away. So if you're sitting there and you're watching somebody else eat a wedge of cheesecake, or somebody eating some homemade donut that other people are raving about, and you have to get to that point, instead of looking at it and feeling sorry for yourself and saying, wow, boy, do I want that. You will gradually, and you have to think about this and start forcing yourself to think this way, but start thinking to yourself, I actually feel sorry for that person, because they don't know better. They don't know how toxic that is. They don't know what it's doing to their body. And boy, am I glad I brought myself to this place where I've educated myself enough and understand enough to know that that kind of thing, week after week, year after year, is going to go nowhere good as far as health. And that it's a mindset change. And that's not to say, you're not going to look at a hot brownie a la mode next to you and think to yourself, I wouldn't eat that if you paid me $1 million. That doesn't happen. There's still that, but it gets easier to overcome. That's I guess the best way, by using different tools. And you have to figure out different ways to deal with your anger and your stress and your anxiety, whether it's, getting yourself up and going for a walk, or getting into meditation, or, it's not that exercise has to be the answer, but there has to be some sort of outlet that you can use as a crutch, really, instead of the food, because it's so easy to turn back to the food, and your brain will start making all sorts of excuses. Well, just a little bit won't hurt, or, wow, I guess everybody's right. This can't be healthy for me in the long term. And, and it makes it very easy to, what I call relapse, because I tell everybody, when I get an understanding if somebody's come from where I've been at with the addiction of it, is that you have to look at that stuff as like a pile of cocaine that you cannot touch, or a syringe of heroin that is just off limits. You have to abstain. And this is, of course, my opinion, because I cringe. I know there's eating disorder models out there that, they have this module of everything in moderation, and you have to learn to be able to have that. And you can't look at food as good or bad, and that will only cause more of an eating disorder. I mean, I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that somebody should be forced to sit there and eat half of a cupcake and sit with it and say that that's okay. Again, that's my personal experience and my opinion, and maybe it's not right for everybody out there suffering the same way, but all I can do is offer what I have really come to believe for myself. And this sugar addiction stuff is not a joke. So
yeah, that's fantastic, Lisa. And I really like how you tied the addiction side into the emotional side, and how folks need to break really both parts of that cycle, both the physical and mental addictions to some of these foods. And you touched on it somewhat also, saying, that person sitting beside you with the brownie a la mode. But let's talk a little bit about social situations. And I'll point folks to some of your talks with Kelly Hogan and Judy and others, where you've gone deeper into this, but just to give folks an idea, what are some of the suggestions you have for people in social situations, whether it's with your family or friends? You're at a holiday and they're saying, "Oh, won't you just have a piece of this almond pie, this cake? Why can't you just try it?" or something like that. What suggestions do you have for folks?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things to understand is that social situations are are hugely varied. I mean, there's everything from just going out for lunch with one friend to a big, wedding event that you're at, or an intimate private dinner party with 3 couples, to having friends over to your home. And so, I'm actually going to do a whole YouTube video on this, because I think it's really important, and it's important to help people stay on track. It's important to help people not make excuses, because that's one of the things that I really feel is that these social situations are, in my mind, for many people, just from being on these forums for over 10 years and seeing what happens, it's almost like it's their free pass, their little ticket to say, well, I didn't want Aunt Hazel to be, mad at me because she made that for me, or, well, I didn't want everybody looking at me like, why aren't you, I just think that no matter what, you have to come to the event armed with your plan. And so in each situation, it can be different. So, if it's a wedding, and typically my thoughts on, going to a wedding where you basically have the choice of salmon, chicken, or a little tiny hockey puck of a filet mignon, I pretty much know that there's not going to be a nice substantial, meal for me there, unless it's a buffet with a carving station. Then I'm really happy. But, and I might allow myself, let's say, say, well, at the cocktail hour, there's, lots of cheese, and there might be some shrimp or whatever. And I'll say, well, I'm going to, allow myself a little bit, that's not cheating, because you're still eating carnivore. But, I might eat when I get back home, or I might eat a little bit before I go there. I just posted on Instagram, because I just had friends over yesterday for kind of like a day at the beach and to grill. And they know how I eat. I've been friends with them for about 5 years now. They've come over a few different times to do the same thing, where we just head to the beach, hang out. And the awkward thing is that, I could go out and purchase salad and, asparagus or whatever, but my thing with that kind of situation, because they know me and people are happy to bring things too, I just say, you know what? I've got great porterhouses here. Just, bring yourself whatever side you want, salad, veggies, whatever you want. I said, just bring that, because everybody's like, oh, what can I bring? I say, well, why don't you bring the side? And that works great. And, so I'm busy grilling up the steaks. They're busy, pulling out the stuff they brought, and everybody's happy. And then they bring all their stuff back home with them. And that's really easy. The more difficult situations are really, I actually just think there's one main one where you have to be vocal up front, is if you are invited to, a more of a small, intimate dinner party, and you don't want to show up and find out that it's lasagna and garlic bread being served. So you have to, in that situation, maybe open your mouth ahead of time. It's a little awkward if you really don't know them that well, and maybe you're just the partner of somebody else who knows them. And so that kind of situation is a little bit rough, but the longer you're carnivore, the more I have this attitude. It's like, I don't give a crap what anybody thinks about what I'm going to pass through my lips or not. And I just have this attitude, like, you're going to serve salad, I'm just going to say, no, thank you. And I love just having people in their heads have this armament of what they can say. Like, you know what, I can't eat that, or, I'm on this special elimination diet, and right now I can only eat this, or, whatever it is. Just, people can't, they're not going to really badmouth you because of that kind of situation. So the other thing with eating out is it's so easy now just to pull up menus online. If somebody says, hey, let's go meet here, I'll go online and just pick out ahead of time what I'm going to eat. I might even, if they have chicken wings, I might call the restaurant ahead of time, so I don't have to do it awkwardly at the table. And I'll just say, hey, are your chicken wings naked? Are they just grilled or smoked, or, how do you cook them? And so I don't have to have that little, oddity presented at the table. I do that ahead of time, but it really makes it easy. And in family, I guess that's a big thing with the family situation where you're going to somebody's birthday party or you're just getting together for, a holiday and all that food's around you. And I call them the naysayers. It's like your friends and your family and your coworkers are really the biggest hurdle for most people. And that's one of my other things to say is like, don't make a big announcement. You don't have to tell everybody what you're doing, because there's going to be naysayers and people who are not interested in doing the research you've done. And you might not be at the position where you've remembered all the things you read or comfortable with saying it. So those naysayers, though, are going to be buzzing in your head. And now you're in front of all the buzz and all the food's out. And you're just like, okay. And that's when I say people just give in. And a lot of it is that addiction speaking up and saying, God, I've been really wanting this for the past so many months that I've been doing carnivore. Wow. Okay. Well, I'll go right back on it Monday. But I tell you, most people find that it is really difficult when you start going off track, that it is sometimes really tough to just kind of jump back in. And I just, I think, like I said, I tried to give a presentation right now of varied social situations. There's so much more than that too. Everybody knows there's so many different, predicaments you get in, but just think it out ahead of time. Think why you're doing this and think how you're going to get through this smoothly.
Yeah, I like how you gave some general guidelines and some specific examples, Lisa. And I completely agree with the overall sentiment of just try not to make a big deal out of it. You probably think people care way more about what you're eating than they actually do. And I often find if you just keep to yourself and try to do some of those things to minimize it, like calling the restaurant ahead of time, it can be really powerful to just make it easy on yourself and you kind of just blend in.
Absolutely. And I also find that, let's say you're at a restaurant with, 6 people and you're all just chatting and laughing and having fun and talking. And let's say nobody knows how you eat and you don't really want anybody to know how you eat. I find for the most part, people really are not paying so much attention to what's on your plate or what you're eating. So you order a steak, you let them bring the baked potato and the side of vegetables on your plate. You kick them around with your fork, you eat the steak. And honestly, people aren't going to look at you and say, what's the matter? You don't want your veggies? Don't you like, people don't pay attention. Everybody's just having a nice time. So I just think that's one of the, and I'll say one other thing quickly about the social situation in restaurants. That one thing that I tend to do when you're at that point, let's say everybody's got the dessert menu and everybody's ordering their dessert and there's creme brulee and, hot apple crumble a la mode and all this stuff going around. People are passing around and sharing. I just use that opportunity. I just do a decaf cappuccino or decaf coffee. That's my treat. And I feel like I'm joining in on the whole dessert time and just, again, talking and enjoying it. And sometimes actually observing and watching everybody's spoons going in everybody else's desserts and them talking about it and excited about it. And it's just, I can still be there and be social and be there for the reason I'm there, which is not for ingesting sugar. It's for the company of my good friends.
It's really important to focus on the connection side, which is why you're really there. And Lisa, one thing I've heard you talk about, at least on MeatRx, which I think is really interesting, is the battle, we're all fighting is really against processed food, sugars, vegetable oils. Not everyone has to go full carnivore. I think that's an important message. For some people, it is necessary, and absolutely, they have either autoimmune conditions, sensitivities, or addictions that really require a full elimination. But who do you think? How do you distinguish, or when you guide folks, how do you understand? Who needs to go all the way to carnivore versus meat-based and eliminating some of the toxic foods like vegetable oils and sugar and grains?
All right, well, so that really varies because for the most part, when somebody's come to carnivore, heard of carnivore, found carnivore, and contacted me to be their coach, there's typically something fairly significant going on that they're trying to resolve themselves from. So I do try to say, though, for people where it's just a real daunting thought process to think that they're going to potentially do this, long term. I said, don't think of it that way. Let's look at it like, let's get you healed. Let's get you feeling great. And let's get you to your ideal body weight. Let's get you off all your medications. And when that happens and you're feeling good, and whether it's, a year or 5 years, and then you want to say, you know what, I really love avocados. Well, go ahead, try some avocado. And you are going to be your own N=1 experiment and see, that's great. Let's go for salad too. If it ends up being a slippery slope back into your problem, you'll know it and you'll know how to solve it. So I'm totally open to saying not everybody has to be carnivore. I'm going to say a lot of people who have come to it for their particular reason should be carnivore, fully carnivore, for at least a period of time to learn for themselves how their body's going to heal and how long it's going to take to heal and what it takes to heal. And for some people, it's going down to meat and water. Thank God for me, it wasn't. I mean, I can do spices. I can eat mustard. I can, trying to think of what else I really do that's maybe sort of non-optimal. I mean, I can eat hot dogs. But there's some people where they're so sensitive, they can't have spices, they can't have pork, they can't have eggs, they can't have dairy. I'm like, well, gosh, you know what? Then that means for decades of you eating that crap diet, you've gotten your body to the point where you've got leaky gut, you've got all sorts of things going on that, heck, you know what? This is, your lot in life right now. This is what you have to do. And once you've healed yourself, then, make the next decision. I don't think anybody really comes to this with the thought that, well, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Most people come, do it, and decide for themselves, wow, I don't want to eat any other way for the rest of my life. I feel that good. So that's really where it comes down to. I don't really even talk about that other than, initially when somebody comes to me and they've got all sorts of problems, it's really going to be my first thing is like, well, let's kick it all out. Some people, if they come from a real crappy diet, I'm going to say, all right, if you can't pull the Band-Aid off and you're not willing to, we can stop sugar 1 week, stop flour and grains the next week, and do it stepwise. Everybody's different. Not everybody's a pull the Band-Aid off kind of person, but I do at least feel that it's really important for people to at least do a 90-day experiment. I don't even like to use 30 days. Usually there is an improvement that people get excited in 30, but some people, depending on where you've come from in this whole, lifetime of garbage eating, it might take longer than that. And that's my other thing. I have a big issue with people saying, I'm carnivore for 6 months now and I still have X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, you know what? You're 57 years old and you've been eating crap for 4 decades. And don't tell me that you think 6 months is, you're going to expect that of your body. So, of course, but, it's hard because people are on social media. They see the transformations. They see everybody like, literally just like the glowing reviews of it, and they get frustrated. And I get it, I totally get it, but I just keep trying to remind everybody, you're on a freighter and you've been on this big huge freighter for a long time, and now you're going to try to flip it on a dime. It's not going to work. You're just going to keep going. You're going to keep feeding yourself this optimal nutrition and not worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's so correct. And I like that distinction between folks who will need to be fully 100% zero carb versus close to it. And also, you're absolutely right that people finding this diet are usually on their last leg and they need to do a full elimination, at least initially for an extended period, and that healing takes a lot of time. So expecting, the body of your dreams or some amazing transformation right from the start of the diet after you've done years and years of damage is just very unrealistic.
Unrealistic, totally unrealistic. Yeah.
And, let's talk a little bit about exercise, Lisa. What's your approach to exercise? And maybe flipping that a little bit, what have been some of your accomplishments with regards to exercise. You're in amazing shape. Folks should check out your Instagram. But how have you been able to achieve some success in exercise with the diet?
All right. Well, so I'm going to say at the beginning, what was one of the really exciting revelations to me was when I was in this early form and people were talking about, like Charles Washington would say, you know what, don't exercise, don't just keep going, just get adapted to this, and it's not the exercise that's going to drop the weight. So just, you just got to keep going, and everybody's so used to coming to this with having to be a slave to the treadmill and a slave to cardio. And I was like, wow, that's really refreshing, because I came from that, eating salads and chicken and thinking I had to, be on a, stationary bike for an hour to, make sure I wasn't, I had to burn enough calories, right? So that was amazing at the beginning for me to realize that I wasn't going to be a slave to a treadmill or a cycle anymore, and that I was actually eating carnivore, and I was leaning out gradually over time without doing that. And then what happens is you start feeling so great. Your joints don't ache at all. You don't even realize that you had any achy joints until your joints actually really don't ache at all. And then you just get this energy that you just want to go out and do stuff. I mean, I was out rollerblading with my kids. I had a friend who challenged me she said, oh, come on, I'm going to run a half marathon. I said, no, I absolutely am not a runner. I hate running. I've never run my whole life, which literally I hadn't. And she's like, come on. So long story short, in 3 months, I ended up training myself from never ever running to my first race of running a half marathon. And I did it in under 2 hours. I did it just eating a big fat ribeye the night before, nothing the morning of. I trained fully, pretty much beef, bacon, and a little bit of other meats through that whole thing. And I felt great. And I ran another one 6 weeks later. And then I stopped running for a couple years. And then I had some friends that were going to go down to Miami and run the Miami half marathon. I was like, all right, well, come on, get my shoes back out and dust them off. And then that was it. Like, I kind of felt like that was a bucket list for me. And I'm really not an avid runner. And I don't want anybody to think like, oh, she looks like she does because she runs. Well, I pretty much don't run. I've taken on a new thing lately. I'm doing this Step Bet app, and it's just really fun. And I'm walking a lot. And I just don't think really long term, heavy distance running is actually that healthy for me. So I do like to I like to do some like pretty much toning kind of things. So now with COVID, I mean, I have resistance bands, I have kettlebells, and I have a TRX. That's kind of been my home thing. And am I really diligent about it? No, I'm not a gym rat. I'm not, working out for an hour a day every day. I'm just, and I'm grateful that I don't have to do that. But I do feel like, I've done different things. Like I posted on my Instagram a couple of years ago, I was in I guess it was Cancun or Turks and Caicos at a Club Med, and there's a trapeze thing there, and you can go every day and learn. And I got asked to be in the show at the end of the week, and I'm flying through the air and being caught by the other trapeze guy, and it was just a blast. And I feel like how many like really at that time I was 53. People could say that they've never one that could even climb up the dang ladder to get up to the platform, let alone do all this. And I just feel like with carnivore, your body is at such an optimal health that you can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you set your mind to do. I like to ski, I like to play golf, I play tennis. It's just one of those amazing things that it just sets you up for success to do whatever you want to do, and not making you a slave to having to do anything as far as burning calories to keep your body weight down.
Yeah, it's very freeing, and I love how you're finding exercise for enjoyment and enjoying the fruits of all the years that you've been carnivore and healed your body and done all these great things for yourself. It's more experiencing exercise as a form of leisure and fun rather than I have to exercise to get healthy or I have to exercise to get in shape.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Well, what's next for you, Lisa? Where can folks find out more about you? This has been fantastic, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, I work part-time as an eye physician, and so my passion there is really trying to help everybody with macular degeneration and diabetes to understand how diet-related it is. And I'd like to any of your listeners who have themselves or a friend or family member with macular degeneration to go to cureamd.org. That's a great website to get information about how these dietary changes is basically stopping all seed oils and sugar and processed food, and that they really believe that could halt and reverse early stages of it. So, I do spend quite a bit of my time during the day that I don't really have doing that, but as best I can, get the word out that way. And then, other than that, I am really on Instagram, Carnivore Doctor, spelling the word doctor out. I try to do lives a couple times a week, and I try to announce them ahead of time so people can ask questions. Ahead of time, they type them in, and I try to go through anything and everything people want to talk about. I do, as best I can, some real simple, easy carnivore cooking, and that's why I started the YouTube channel. So I'm doing that for both the cooking and also to do some informative videos I'll be putting out as far as, my 5 favorite tricks for being successful carnivore or social situations. I'm going to do one on drinking alcohol because so many people are curious about that. But that's basically, I do have a Carnivore Doctor on Facebook also because I realize a lot of people are just on Facebook. So pretty much a lot of what I post on Instagram goes over to Facebook, but I'm much more active and attentive to the Instagram account because it's just easier for me and I can't split myself in too many ways.
That's great. Well, I'll certainly link all of that in the show notes and at carnivorecast.com. But really looking forward to following more of your content and seeing some of those videos come out. And thanks again for your time today, Lisa. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out, and share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at CarnivoreCast or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.